Welcome. I am Millie Weaver. We are joined with Verstine Henry, and you are watching the 34-hour Know Your Enemy live special broadcast. So Verstine Henry here, she has had some pretty amazing experiences. She was telling me about her red pill story and how she kind of woke up and how it has to do with vaccines. So Verstine, what is your red pill story?
Well, a while ago, my best friend's son was vaccine injured. He was completely fine, walking, looking at people, talking normally. He goes to get his MMR shot, comes back, brain swells up, and is basically flapping around, not talking. So we're like, I'm like, this is horrible. You have to go and sue them. He was perfectly fine. She comes back and she's like, I can't sue the doctors or the pharmaceutical industry. I'm like, you can't sue them. And I think you've talked about this before.
Exactly. That's right, because they have immunity. In the vaccine courts, you actually cannot sue when your child is injured. And that's partially why, most parents like myself are refusing to vaccinate, is because you don't have any liability. Yeah. So what's to keep you from injuring our children?
Yeah. Well, also there is a like a kangaroo court. There's a fund which every person pays. There's like 75 cents. Each time you go to buy a vaccine, you pay 75 cents, and it goes into a fund. And basically, it's a kangaroo court where you can't. There's no judge, no juror. It's like a, what do you call it? Like what is two people, like a mediation kind of situation.
Yeah, they're usually in private hearings.
Yeah, private hearings, and you also have to get a doctor to vouch for you, which is darn near impossible, because a lot of doctors are so brainwashed they won't even acknowledge the fact that your child was vaccine injured. They'll just blame it on angry parents. Which brings me to my other point. So after this happened to her, family's completely devastated. And one thing I want to talk about too, when somebody is vaccine injured in your family, it not just only affects your child, but it affects the siblings, because the siblings feel neglected. Financial strain on the family, divorce rate is through the roof. It's completely devastating to a whole generation of people. So this is going on, and we start to do a lot of research into how to cure him, how to fix everything that's going on. And she comes back and she's just like, wait, she's showing me stuff saying that, like, wait, these aren't tested for mutagenesis or carcinogenesis or the ability to impair fertility in the inserts. Nobody told her any of this stuff. So
basically, was it your friend's experience with their child being vaccine injured that first opened your eyes that, hey, the fake news media is lying to us about the safety of vaccines? Yeah,
I was going to say something. I diverted a bit. So then we start watching TV, and we started seeing, we watched the Andrew Wakefield infamous interview with Anderson Cooper. And he just treated him like garbage. He wouldn't even let him speak, to the point where I was like, let the man speak. I want to hear what he has to say. So then I actually went back and I read his study. We both read his study, and we were like, wait a minute, what the fake news is saying, we didn't say fake news at the time, but the news is saying, is it anything what we're being told? They don't mention the fact that there were 12 other doctors on the study. They don't mention the fact that him and another doctor actually got their license revoked, but they all make it out to be him. And we figured out that they used him as an example to other doctors not to speak out. And now it's a famous term called Wakefield it, read his book. And then we watched a George Stephanopoulos interview. And George Stephanopoulos is interviewing Andrew Wakefield. And then Andrew Wakefield's like, well, if you read my book, and George Stephanopoulos is like, well, I read your book. And we're like, no, you didn't. You're a liar. We're like, we know, like you're lying, And just this whole agenda, making parents look like they're idiots.
That's right. The doctors want to put you in a state of fear and panic.
Yeah.
Same techniques that a lot of people in the mainstream media use. Like, if you don't vaccinate your kid, they're going to die. They're going to get, the worst of the worst. And you're going to, so what happens is mothers get essentially bullied into trusting the doctors, which you grow up in a society where you're supposed to trust the doctor. The doctor knows best. But that's only been since the past 100 or so years. All throughout civilization, you didn't have this huge medical industry that we see today.
Yeah, do you know about that, about the Flexner report and how that came and created a schism? Because before that, there were all types of homeopathy and all other types of medicine, different than allopathic medicine, which is the mainstream medicine that we use today. There was a guy that was funded by the Carnegies and the Rockefellers named Abraham Flexner, who came in and wrote the Flexner report and basically weeded out all of the other types of medicine.
Exactly. They had tons of other types of medicine. They used to even have cannabis extracts that they would give to people for a variety of reasons before they made cannabis illegal. And so what it is they used to recognize that herbs and natural things that grew in nature help our body. And then you have the American Medical Association. You have all these doctors who started out practicing the most insane procedures, and they had a lot of trials and tribulations. It wasn't always perfect for the doctors, and it still is far from perfect. They used to, perform labor births for the women where they would actually not even have their hands washed, no gloves. Yeah. And all these women were dying from infections. So they didn't always know. It's been a thing where they kind of learned, they engaged in barbaric, weird ritual, like weird practices for the medical industry. And that's where they came from to today, to now injecting babies with, say, 8 or 9 or 12 vaccines in one sitting, which sounds pretty insane. Yeah. And then you have herbalists, wellness nutritionists, everything like that are just completely, they ignore them. They don't want to hear anything about these alternatives that have shown to improve and actually help people's health.
Yes. And going back, I just wanted to hop on a point that you just talked about, the hand washing.
Exactly.
There was actually a Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis, I think I'm saying his name right, who actually brought up the point that the reason that these women are having complications in childbirth is the fact that doctors aren't simply washing their hands. And he was like the Andrew Wakefield of that time. He was basically outed and driven insane. And now we accept that as fact, that yes, you should wash your hands before, I don't know, doing surgery on somebody. It's really simple concept,
it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But see, that's just an example of the medical industry thinking they're doing something right, thinking that, they know all, they're the best there is and all of this stuff. But then that arrogance today, even, it's the best thing to vaccine a premature baby or vaccinate a pregnant woman with a baby. When they've actually shown that what happens with pregnant women is they get vaccinated, it creates a immune response. And then a lot of times they miscarry because their body rejects the baby because of the immune response. Yeah. So there's all of these different circumstances where you have the medical society thinking they know best, and then you have people out there, nutritionists, wellness coaches, mother's intuition, that kind of gets pushed to the side when we should actually pay attention to that as well. Yeah. Not to discount, because, hey, you need your leg to be, you broke your leg, you need your leg to be fixed and cast and everything. The medical society has a great purpose in that.
They're good. Allopathic medicine is good for trauma injury. That's it. When it comes to diseases, for my own health issues, I won't even go there anymore. But going back to what you said about doctors, just to be fair, a lot of doctors are systematically brainwashed. When they go through medical school, they're led through sleep deprivation, and they're just having to memorize and regurgitate a lot of information without critical thinking. There's a guy named, what's his name, Forrest McReady, who basically he ordered a bunch of medical books and did a video talking about, like, out of the thousands, he ordered a bunch of medical books for medical schools, and he went through the medical curriculum, and he saw that out of like thousands of pages of medical information that doctors have to memorize and regurgitate to get their medical degree, only like 7 pages is taught on vaccines. And they're not taught about nutrition. It's like something crazy, like 10 hours. And so a lot of doctors, they don't really know. They're not really, I don't think a lot of doctors are doing it on purpose. I think some are psychotic. You have those psychotic doctors that do know and don't care, and psychotic doctors that don't vaccinate their kids, but they'll push vaccines on you. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of doctors actually think that they're doing the right thing. And as my friend and I, as we researched, we realized a lot of doctors have gotten burned. A lot of doctors have had their children die or become autistic, or, autism is only the tip of the iceberg. So it's the SIDS kids. It's the It's the Gardasil girls. You know, Japan just withdrew, I think a year or 2 years ago, they withdrew their Gardasil vaccine because of side effects.
Oh, yeah. Tons of women were having their lives ruined because they were told that they should get this Gardasil vaccine. They were even pushing it on young teenage boys as well so that they wouldn't potentially give it to another woman, which is interesting because you have so many people now that are, you know, homosexual or whatever. So I don't see why you'd be pushing on young kids, regardless of knowing any of that history there. But, you know, it just reminds me of, you know, the medical industry being so overbearing. And you were telling me about how you've had a cousin and friends that their children were severely vaccine injured.
Oh, yeah. So getting back to my friend. So this happens to my friend. I put her in touch with my cousin. She's a bit older than me, and we hadn't spoken in a while, you know, just kind of lost touch. And I was like, well, I have an autistic cousin. And just, you know, for the sake of another mother talking to another mother that have autistic children, I thought they should talk to each other. Got them together, start talking to my cousin. Exact same thing happened to her. So we're like, whoa. So then we also had a girl, when we started doing our podcast, we had a girl who became a friend of ours who was 13 and paralyzed by the Gardasil vaccine.
Wow.
So, I mean.
Now, how shortly after getting the vaccine did your cousin notice a result in her child?
She said immediately her brain swelled up. So usually a lot of the pattern with, it seems to be the child gets a vaccine, the brain swells up. And then, which is, this is even worse. They tell the doctors tell the parents to give them Tylenol, but Tylenol depletes your body of glutathione, which makes it easier for your body to, what do you call it? To
pass it through,
pass the toxins.
To pass the toxins out, because it messes with your liver, which we know that Tylenol is actually horrible, apparently, for children's livers.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, they have a fever, their brain's swelling up, give them some Tylenol. They're like, okay, so it makes the situation even worse, and their brain swells up. So, I mean, autism is the word, but it's really brain damage, or you know, damage in other forms. It can come in the form of asthma, it can come in the form of eczema, it can come in the form of, we have all of these autoimmune diseases, you know, that we've never had.
Exactly, they're messing us up. Yeah. So we have to keep going to their medical establishments and keep feeding them all our money. Now, you know what's so interesting is everyone's panicking about, we have all of these healthcare costs. We need something like Obamacare. We need something like Trump care. We need some kind of healthcare. It's like, you know what we actually need? We need to get healthy. We need to stop allowing these big pharmaceutical companies to poison our bodies. Yeah. We need to stop having Monsanto and these big companies, you know, being allowed to spray our food in the same way that you have the vaccine immunity. You also have Monsanto and these genetically modified food companies having immunities as well. And that's when you know, okay, when these big corporations are having immunities, there's something wrong here. They're lobbying our politicians to get those immunities.
Yeah. So it starts with the vaccines, and then it's the GMO, and then it's the chemtrails. It's everything. So
as they're hitting us at all angles.
Yeah. As we're doing our research, we kind of we joke that we got into like the deep end of the rabbit hole, because even in the alternative media, we found that people are very reluctant to talk about vaccines. You even might have somebody that believes 9/11 was an inside job, but then you bring up vaccine, and they're like, oh no, vaccines save lives. You know, you're crazy. You know, and when we would do our podcast, people would lose their mind. We'd get death threats. We'd have to turn the comment section off. We'd be called child killers. And it was just, I think it's not even only like the doctors and the medical establishment, but, you know, going back and looking at cartoons like the Flintstones and Sesame Street. And, you know, we've been programmed at a young age to...
we've been programmed at a young age
to accept this as, you know, like religion. People are it's a religion. It's become a religion. So when you even question it, people can't even fathom that this is, you know, it's wrong. And if you think about it, we've been around, I think anthropologists have said about 200,000 years, but vaccines have only been around for the last 200. How did we manage to survive before then?
Well, you know, they've actually shown that, you know, we did have outbreaks. We did have polio. We did have the Black Plague. There were outbreaks throughout history, but you can actually trace a majority of those pandemics to poor hygiene.
Yes.
Essentially having large amounts of people cramped in together in small spaces where you're not having proper hygiene. People are, the people didn't have proper toilets and septic systems. They urinated and defecated on the streets. They used to pour their urine outside, out their window. So yeah, they had problems back then, and they had hygiene problems.
And they would drink that, if you look at graphs about vaccines too, there wasn't a vaccine created for cholera or scarlet fever. Those went down.
Exactly. That's a great point.
There's a really good Suzanne Humphreys. I love her. If you may have had her on in the past, I don't know, but if you can get her back on again, she's written a book called Dissolving Illusions. She's made a really good chronicle of. She breaks down each disease and how it was called, like scurvy, how it was caused. Scurvy, lack of vitamin C. So it's not just it's hygiene and it's nutrition. They know that measles. If you get measles, it depletes your body of vitamin A. So the WHO knows this because they when they were having vaccine reactions and giving people the measles vaccine, they noticed if they gave them vitamin A before that, they wouldn't have reactions. Their actions were lessened.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. So essentially, a lot of illness can be attributed to nutritional deficiencies as well.
Yeah. Well, I think. My research and my friends' research, we've kind of come to the conclusion, and a lot of people have, that our whole medical model is based on, as now with the vaccines and the Pasteur's, germ theory, and how Pasteur, his theory is germs are everywhere. We have to protect ourselves from germs. Therefore, that makes us dependent on things like pills and vaccines, right? But they
actually have shown that those hand sanitizers are actually really bad for your health.
Oh no!
Those antibacterial soaps.
They're killing the big good bacteria.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we're living organisms, so we need bacteria. We need good bacteria to survive and bad bacteria. So if you're killing off the good bacteria, then the bad bacteria takes over, and then it weakens our defenses and our
just like with the overusage of antibiotics.
Yes.
How that actually really plays a role, because a lot of times these children who have been vaccine injured, they're getting sick all the time. They're going in. The doctors are just throwing these antibiotic prescriptions at them like you wouldn't even believe. They think, oh well, maybe it's a cold, maybe not. Well, here's a antibiotic anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
You might as well. It's like dropping a nuclear bomb in your gut, basically.
Yeah, you're killing the good bacteria along with the bad, and then it makes it easier so that when you start eating and whatever, you can repopulate your gut, but it's most likely going to be out of balance.
Yes. And now there's, speaking of Dr. Wakefield, there's a lot of research to back up his work, and also talking about the gut-brain connection and how that's important. And now they believe that 80% of the immune system is in the gut. And we have other defenses like mucuses and the hairs in our body, our skin, but most of it is in our gut. So I want to go back to talking about the medical model. So we have the Pasteur theory that basically makes us, the germ theory that makes us dependent on pills and vaccines. But there's also another theory that a lot of people don't know about called cellular theory. And basically it talks about or terrain theory. And it basically talks about if you keep your body in good shape. So basically if we have a force field around our body, if we have good nutrition and we're good hygiene and we're in good state of mind, not stress, then we can come in contact with all of these germs and we won't be affected. Right?
You're right. There's certain things like getting out, being exposed to the sunlight, exercising, because vitamin D deficiency plays a big role as well in having a depleted immune system.
Exactly. It's like, think of a fish tank, right? You have a fish that's in a dirty tank. Do you clean the tank or do you vaccinate the fish? Right?
Right? You clean the tank.
You're going to get the fish vaccinated.
They just want to overly vaccinate everything. And these doctors, they really try to guilt you. I have a story where when I had my son, I was pregnant and I got in a car accident. Oh, no. And it was a pretty crazy high-speed car accident. And so I had to have an emergency C-section because my pelvis was broken. And it was pretty horrible. But they ended up taking my son out, and he was a little bit premature. I remember him being so tiny. I think it was around 5 pounds, something ounces. And his toenails weren't even grown in all the way yet. He was premature. It was apparent. And they were just like, all right, let's vaccinate him. Let's jab him. And I was actually unconscious in anesthesia at the time because they had to perform a certain type of C-section on me because of my car accident. And which I planned to do the natural birth and everything, you know, but it just ruined it.
Man, I'd be devastated.
Yeah, it ruined it. And so essentially, the nurses were going to try to give my husband a hard time about us deciding to not vaccinate. And so one of the nurses, he said, actually said, well, you know, pulled the other nurse aside, and he heard them saying, oh, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and drug test this baby. Because we were in Colorado at the time, and this nurse immediately started scheming, what can I do to take away jurisdiction from these parents, take away their parental rights so that I can forcefully vaccinate this premature baby that had already just been through a traumatic car accident that we didn't know whether he had any repercussions or injuries because of that. Wow. And so essentially one of the nurses there said, don't you dare. These people just went through a traumatic car accident. How dare you? Oh, wow. You drop it. You know, so if it weren't for that nurse there, we could have went through a lot of problems, a lot of struggle. You know, I don't think that if they would have drug tested him, anything would have came up positive.
Still, that's the intimidation factor.
It's still the intimidation the intimidation factor.
It's like this psychopathic, altruistic attitude. People think they're doing the right thing.
Oh, yeah.
Have to vaccinate because we've been conditioned since, you know, births and through cartoons and, you know, listen to your doctor, get vaccinated, do the right thing. You know, herd immunity, like if you don't get vaccinated, you're hurting everybody else. You're putting everybody else in danger.
And they don't care to vaccinate. You know, everybody's bodies are different.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have a slightly different reaction to things, as well as a premature baby is going to have less body fat. It's going to be more vulnerable than a fully mature baby. And you talk about different weights of the child, different, conditions whether the child is sick already, like a child with a cold, or like, for example, that I have because I've got a toddler that goes to a daycare, and guess what? It's flu season. So all the kids at the daycare go get their flu shots, and then
they're shedding vaccines.
Exactly.
They even tell you.
They tell you right after
in the insert.
Yeah, they say you're going to be contagious.
Yeah, and people don't know. People don't even know about the insert. We didn't even know about the insert. You know, and she comes back. My friend comes back. I'm like, there are inserts. You know, and you can read all of the contradictions, the things that they're not tested for, all the side effects, which includes death. And through the Vaccine Injured Court, I found a law, is like a law firm that represents vaccine injured people. And this particular law firm, most of their cases were for the flu shot. So people either were died, or got Guillain-Barré.
Wow.
Do you know what that is? When you become like paralyzed, basically and it goes starts from the feet, goes all the way up. It can paralyze you even to the point where you need help breathing. It's basically like polio, basically, you know, the iron lung.
Yeah.
Where you can't. Yeah. So a lot of people, the flu shot was actually the shot that they paid out the most.
It's crazy. And they're trying to force even nurses, just recently, about 50 nurses were fired from a medical establishment because they refused vaccination. So even the nurses now are refusing to be vaccinated because they've seen that most of the time you take the flu shot, you get the flu just as bad as if you were going to have it anyway. They're essentially giving you the flu shot. And the BBC has actually been posting an article recently urging parents to vaccine their children, calling the children super spreaders, and that you need to get your children vaccinated prior to Christmas so that they don't endanger their grandparents, endanger the old people.
Okay, first of all, when all these outbreaks happen, they never mention that the majority of these people are vaccinated, okay? Second of all, they don't mention that herd immunity applies to naturally acquired immunity. This comes from an epidemiologist in the 1930s who studied measles for about 30 years, and he figured out that people get natural immunity. They're immune for life. They don't need they don't get it again. With the when the measles vaccine came out, I think it was licensed about like 1963 or 4 or something like that. They were like, oh, one shot, you're fine. We're done. Your immune system is going to be great. So then through the years, they found out that the antibodies actually started to wane, and that you needed to get more vaccines. So this is now why we get what's called booster shots. So the more booster shots that people have been given, the more our immune system or our titers, or what they use to measure whether you're immune or not, start to wane. So now, I mean, it's like we have to keep getting shots to get the immunity up, but it's not working basically. So they're never going to admit that it's not working.
Yeah, it doesn't work. The kids usually that get the measles, the mumps, and all that, when those outbreaks occur, typically are already vaccinated children.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty interesting. It even reminds me of a video where a doctor of veterinary medicine, Dr. John Robb, actually tried to speak out. He had a battle for over 4 years with regulators over the vaccine doses that they were even giving to animals, to dogs, to cats. He said he witnessed several dogs die, go into anaphylactic shock, have autoimmune diseases, just straight up die, have serum sickness. So let's go ahead and I've got a clip of this doctor here, and it's pretty powerful, where he's literally going head to head with the state regulators, talking about you can't be giving a vaccine of the same dose to 100 and something pound dog that you would be giving to a 5-pound dog. Like when you're giving a tiny little teacup poodle the same dose of vaccine that you're giving to a massive 120-pound dog, then that's when there's something wrong. But you know, aside from that, looks like we don't have that video ready yet, but you know, this is crazy that we literally have to battle fake news media constantly spinning that, oh, go out and get your flu shots, go get your children vaccinated so that they can get everyone sick, so that they can continue into the establishment and the dumbing down of the population in the United States. And that's why it's so important that you guys spread this message, spread the links. We need to get this message out here because children are being hurt daily.
Yeah.
They're being permanently murdered, damaged, injured. This information needs to get out here. And this is why we have done this Know Your Enemy live broadcast today, so that we can talk about the enemy and their deception and the fake news and how they peddle this misinformation. So you know that we are funded and listener supported, and it's because of listeners like you guys that we are even able to keep going on and keep trekking and keep on fighting the globalists. So make sure you guys check out and visit our store at InfoWarsStore.com. We still have some amazing deals. We've got 67% off of Silver Bullet, which, you know, Silver Bullet has some antibiotic capabilities without killing those good bacteria. So a lot of people use that for bacterial and viral infections. You know, you can also check out Brain Force Plus, 50% off. We've got the Real Red Pill, which is new, a new product that I am dying to try. I have not gotten around to trying it yet, but it looks amazing.
Oh, the Real Red Pill.
The Real Red Pill. We've got
right.
Cross to Guard, 50% off. Survival Shield X2, 50% off, plus free shipping. All Pro Pure items are 25% off, and that includes free shipping. We've got Living Defense 50% off, and many other amazing, great deals on our store right now. We've got some continued Black Friday sale going on, so make sure you guys get it while you can. We've also got a sale going on still on our limited edition T-shirt, with only one left to buy on the anti-fascist, anti-communist shirt, which is awesome because it's kind of a parody of Antifa's shirts, but it points out that we're both anti-fascist and anti-communist, and it comes with a 3-inch matching sticker. So you can put that sticker somewhere awesome. I mean, whatever you do, don't put that sticker over a Bernie Sanders sticker. Don't put that sticker over an Antifa sticker. Don't put that sticker, you know, in liberal cities. You know, you just don't want to do it. So
you might just get jacked.
Yeah, make sure you guys check out these amazing deals. And we will be right back with you guys after this short break.
I'm so excited. The new product at InfoWarsLife.com in a glass bottle, 2-month servings, filled to the brim, filled to the absolute top. The Real Red Pill. This is a heart and brain pill, a nootropic that doesn't have any stimulants in it. But boy, does it stimulate, because it's beyond that. Quite frankly, I just went off what I saw medical doctors prescribing to their patients, but it wasn't prescription, but they were charging people $100, $200 for the formulae. And I came up with our own formula, working with some scientists and developers, non-GMO, made right here in America, 120 capsules. And ladies and gentlemen, you add the pregnenolone to it, which is the precursor to all the hormones that your body has to have to even make the hormones in your glands. It is amazing. Red Pill, now available at InfoWarsStore.com, and your purchase funds the operation. You can learn a lot about the weaknesses of our enemies by studying what they attack, by studying what they fear. They fear families living together. They fear people loving God. They fear individuals being independent and successful and empowered. They fear communities really coming together and sharing in the bounty of a free market system. And they fear individuals openly exercising their First Amendment. That's why it is essential on every front to support Infowars. When you get a t-shirt like this new shirt that is my all-time favorite, and it's brand new, super nice fabric, it's designer made, won't tread on me with a big Gadsden snake right in the middle of the chest, a Dayglow, Infowars.com on the right shoulder with an American flag, Infowars.com on the back. When you wear it, it telegraphs to friends and to foe where you stand and what you believe. And so many things will happen. We are the majority. And it lets the minions of the bullies that are out there trying to intimidate us know and understand that we're not backing down and we're aware of what's happening. But just as importantly, it will allow you to meet like-minded people who could become some of the best friends in your life. So many people stop me on the streets all over the country and shake my hand and say, here's my husband, here's my wife, or here's a photo of my husband and my children. I was wearing one of your t-shirts at the park or at church or at the mall and met my spouse. So many people write me and have also told me on the street that they met like-minded people wearing these t-shirts that then became their new employer or their new business partner. We have to fly our flag. We have to wear our colors. So, won't tread on me, the new shirt at InfoWarsStore.com. When you get excited and you take action, nothing can stop you. And I want to see seas of this iconic shirt out there at big events and at Trump rallies and at land rights rallies and at Second Amendment rallies and on C-SPAN and on national television. We changed the world with the Bill Clinton rape shirt and the lock her up, Hillary for prison shirt. We've changed the world because you took action. Now let's take it to the next level and also support InfoWars and our operation financially when you get the shirt. So promote free speech, stand up to bullies, get a high-quality shirt, meet like-minded people, again, and fund Infowars and the expanding operation we've got in the face of the globalists trying to shut us down. It is a total, complete 360 win. Please commit today to visit InfoWarsStore.com and look at all the amazing Patriot apparel, from ball caps to sweatshirts to high-quality T-shirts at InfoWarsStore.com, and we will continue to change the world together for the better, for our children, for righteousness, and for justice. I'm Alex Jones, and we will continue to change the world together for our children, for our communities, for ourselves, and for truth and for justice. Again, I want to thank you all for your support, and I salute you all for what you've done in the InfoWar, whether it's spreading links to articles and videos, or spreading the word on the ground, or telling folks about local radio stations, or supporting our local sponsors. All of it has changed the world, especially your prayers. So please, from myself and my family and the amazing crew here at InfoWars, thank you for all you've done. You are the InfoWar.
Millie Weaver, and you are watching the Know Your Enemy live 34-hour broadcast. We have some amazing ladies joining us. We've had Verstine Henry this past half hour or so, and now we are also joined by Elizabeth Everett. And Elizabeth Everett is a holistic herbalist, and she knows a lot about NLP and hypnosis and psychology. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be kind of delving into some pretty amazing topics here. Now, what did you think about, were you watching some of my conversation? What did you think about this whole vaccine injury epidemic we're in?
Well, I was able to catch a little bit of it, and I have definitely had firsthand experience, not only within my family, but in my own personal life. I mean, I was damaged by vaccines early on.
Wow.
I almost actually died from them. So,
oh my gosh.
I think that set me on the journey of seeking wholeness, with working with the herbs and the supplements and the superfoods and helping others, but also as walking the road of being an herbalist. I've been in many conferences and classes and courses where I'm surrounded by hundreds of people in pain, with their children that have either died, and so they're there to try to learn what happened, and many of them often say, well, I was a pro-vaxxer, everybody's a pro-vaxxer until it happens actually to them.
Exactly.
Or,
wow.
They're with children that literally are in their own prison for the rest of their lives, right? Yeah. And there are definitely things that can be done. There's supplements that people can work with. There's a little bit of the autism, the spectrum can be dialed down a little bit. But even down to, you guys were talking about the pets and the animals being poisoned. I had a dog die from a vaccine too, I mean, but one of the biggest things I actually wanted to mention, because for me, I'm really about mental health, especially spiritual, the sovereign mind, right? How do we deprogram from everything and really come to a place of balance, and homeostasis?
Exactly.
And you were mentioning something about children now being labeled as super
that's
spreaders.
Right. Yeah, BBC has been labeled super spreaders.
Yeah, but can you imagine if a child is called that in school or given that label or ridiculed with that? These are kids that are developing, their minds are developing, and that deep psychological core is being taught that they give other people diseases.
Wow.
Think about what that does to a being's psyche, and then they carry that for the rest of their lives.
And then the guilt that comes along with if they see their grandparents sick, are they psychologically going to think,
it's my fault?
Oh my gosh, it's my fault. My grandma's sick. Not understanding from a child's perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
just being called names. I used to, work in I was a teacher in elementary school, and just, kids would be upset being called the littlest name, like Funky Monkey or something silly, but hurt their feelings. But being called that's even like worse. You're like, it's like the Black Death or the Scarlet Letter, right? Or like you're bringing a plague upon everybody.
Yeah, it's a negative connotation kind of that you're putting on a child. So that's really interesting. Now, from an herbalist perspective, because we've been talking a lot about how some of these techniques that they use and the medical society can result in people having vaccine injuries and other injuries. From an herbalist perspective, what can someone do to heal from vaccine injury? Because you seem to be pretty fine. You say you were vaccine injured.
Yeah.
But you look pretty fine.
Well, if you met me in my 20s, I would barely be able to, hold eye contact with you. A lot of the reasons, I was very much on the Asperger spectrum. And I actually became an herbalist. That was one of the reasons why I was forced in many ways to walk that road. Or, the doctors, the allopathic world wanted to remove organs. Literally.
I love that.
Just
chop it out.
Get rid of it. You don't need it. You don't need it.
Come on now. And then I had to make a very, very serious decision in my 20s, and I didn't realize it would affect the rest of my life, and thankfully I took the right path, and I studied under many, many herbalists. It took me about 3 years to really start seeing a change, all the detoxing that I had had to do, balancing the hormones, but especially that, we carry so many of these toxins in our body. Even the breast milk, for example, of our mothers carries it. Of past vaccines, for example. They found thousands of chemicals in newborn babies, for example, right? So that has to be detoxed out. But then there are all these amazing superfoods. It used to be a difficult road, right? It used to be hard to access all these plants and superfoods, right? But now with the internet and, the click of a button, supplements like, what you're finding at Infowars, for example, or a lot of the ancient Chinese formulas that used to only be used by, the concubines or the emperors, right?
We have access to things to allow us to heal.
Absolutely.
You sell the cures for the for the mess that the mainstream media has.
Right.
Fake mainstream media has.
Did you just say that?
Cures.
Would you just say that?
I'm cures.
So that's pretty interesting because, at our store at InfoWarsStore.com, we do sell tons of probiotics for gut health, which, I've heard a lot of people talking about different regimens that they use for vaccine injury. And we sell a lot of the things that these people talk about using in their vaccine injury protocol. And so it's just a matter of if people are willing to do the research and find it out for themselves, that they can actually make a difference, heal, and help heal their family members. That's really what it's going to boil down to. I was reading up something that was pretty mind-blowing to me pretty recently, and you had these doctors who, of course, as soon as you start talking about anything that's outside of the traditional medicine and your doctor, you get flack, okay? So you had these doctors that had gotten flack already, but they were talking about utilizing colostrum to help against having had a vaccine injury that messed up your gut, because colostrum is that first mother's milk. It's the first thing that you're supposed to drink when you're a baby. It lines your intestine, right? And then it helps you to digest your first food. So some were saying using colostrum helps people.
That's absolutely one of the things that you can work with. Another thing that you can work with is, there have been all kinds of levels of success working with the probiotics, right? So probiotics, if you have that in your system, that's one of the first things that you work with. Even if you're not autistic or Asperger's or what have you, or vaccine damaged, look at what you're eating. But, often just going to the health food store and treating yourself to, the probiotics that are in the refrigerated section especially, it's going to make a massive difference, right? And then you start to look at, okay.
Like we just have carnivore Flora Live, 15 billion live cultures every day, maintenance and carnivore 30 count combo that we've got on sale in our store right now. And this is some powerful stuff. It really is. I mean, I've been taking some of our other probiotics, but I'm actually really curious to try this one because this one seems to be even stronger than the probiotics that we had before.
And one of the most important things to do when you're working with something like Flora Life is that people don't realize that when they're taking a course of antibiotics, they're wiping out their system, right? So basically they're taking out also the good and the friendly bacteria too, right? They bomb their system. So it's super important, especially right then and there after you've had the antibiotics, to seed it with the good, with all the good bacteria. So the Flora Life or whatever, whatever you prefer to work with, that's one of the best things that you can do. Yeah.
I'm kind of going to shift this because, my mind is random like this, but I am just dying to know because you had done some amazing lectures that I saw, some of on YouTube, talking about NLP and the whole subjective mind reference thing. And since this whole broadcast is kind of circling around fake news media,
yes.
I'm dying to know, have you been able to see like apparent NLP hypnosis techniques that the mainstream media news anchors and pundits use?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's really quite laughable. And the more that people can become a student of discernment and learn to not go, unconscious when they watch the news or entertainment, or as I call it, entrainment. It's like they're watching those comedy shows at late night, when in fact those people are absolutely pushing an agenda, and they're absolutely using NLP tactics, different forms of hypnosis. What you have to understand about television is that the studies that have been done is that usually people will go into a hyper suggestible brainwave state called alpha, right? And they go into that usually within the first 30 seconds of
And the flicker rates probably help with that too, right? The constant flickering.
Yeah, absolutely. And what they don't realize is that their conscious mind may be focused on what somebody's teaching right in the center of the screen, right, with these beautiful talking heads, right, all the reporters and whatnot. But usually there are other things going on in the background. For example, I was watching the other day on one of the news programs. They were, talking about how evil Donald Trump was. Yet again, a little skipping record there, right?
Big surprise.
And it was something seemingly innocuous, right? And then suddenly floating behind the reporter were these little quiet pictures of the Kremlin and Moscow.
Oh my gosh. Come on.
But I mean, and
it's subliminal.
They weren't even talking about Russia, right? And it's amazing to watch. Most people weren't even aware of that, I guarantee you. Or there's the chyron that's going on underneath, the ticker that's running underneath of so many programs. Often people aren't paying attention to that, but it will be something that creates a cognitive dissonance as to the information that you're being taught about in the conscious information, but the subconscious is literally being programmed with something else. So there's all the optics. There are different ways of using words, for example. Often you'll find that the talking heads always use the same kind of words.
That's right. They have the same talking points.
Terror, fear, right? So they get you into that kind of place.
Yeah.
Well, so you're so racist.
And it's the same trigger words that they use.
Trigger being the right word.
It's the same trigger words that they use all on different stations so that it can trigger that same state of mind that whoever originally planted put it in there with.
Yeah. So a perfect demonstration of this is for example, they've been programming us for a long, long time to work with being afraid of, for example, the vaccines that they're trying to sell. They'll push some new biohazard or the flu or Ebola.
The swine flu.
Okay, so what you'll now start to notice is that you should be paying attention to the little subtleties, because the secrets are in the subtleties. There's a very specific color that they always start showing, right? And so that color literally is like a little cue to your subconscious mind to bring up the files around the concept of the biohazard, the fear, right?
Wow.
And it's that really creepy kind of
It's like the hazmat
green
image.
Oh, wow.
Did you notice it's like that weird teal green color? So literally around the same timing as when they're talking about, oh, you all better get your vaccines. And the chickie dude on the screen will literally be wearing that outfit. They'll have, be rolling around all these sick people and they've got the bracelets on or the little items, and it's that color green. So that is accessing a deeper file from the subconscious.
Wow.
Oh, yes. And for example, a lot of fake news in so many levels, right? And you just have to read all the tells. A perfect example of, I feel, something of Hillary's campaign that went awfully wrong, that most people aren't even aware of. And I think they did it. I absolutely think they did it deliberately, but it backfired. Look at her logo. Think about her logo.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, I know. It's the hospital sign. It's the hospital, because literally, right?
I can't picture it.
Right after she had,
you'll never
when she had
unsee
her
this.
medical thing.
Thank you. Right.
It's
That's
the
it.
hospital. It's literally, you have those blue signs
More than that.
with the H and the arrow that's like hospital this way.
Yeah, but it's actually, what else is it meant to evoke? What else does that remind you of?
The H?
9/11.
Oh, and the airplane.
The airplane flying through.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that like, that's like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
And it goes back to a lot of, like the tarot.
Oh my gosh.
The tarot, the two columns,
But also,
for example.
do you see what I'm talking about with the hospital sign?
I do see that.
And how she was sick?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, wait, our country's going to be needing to go to the hospital after 4 years of Hillary Clinton. Actually, after 2 days of Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and I mean, this technology is so fascinating, and they've been doing it ever since, Project Paperclip, the MK Ultra information that came forward. But I mean, you can literally watch one of the really, really famous ones that was hardcore and in your face is in the 1960s, they used to play a national anthem, and literally right before they would sign off. Now, see, one of the most important things you have to understand about a person's mind being open and suggestible and that they're not able to actually block the information coming in is it's the first half an hour of somebody waking up in the morning and the last half an hour before going to bed. Right?
Yes.
So that's when you really better be super,
and a lot
super
of people
careful.
sleep with the TV on.
They sleep with the TV
They
on.
do. That's so bad. That's horrible.
That's the worst thing because it's going straight in, right? So what they did, these little sneaky guys, is that they literally would run this national anthem right before bedtime, right before the station would turn off, yeah? And what would happen is that, if you slow down the frames, it looks completely, innocuous, but actually all these studies were done. You can see the way the words of the lyrics are. They've got, thank you. You guys are amazing.
Yeah.
So literally it comes up as things like, trust your government. Rebellion will not be tolerated.
Straight up 1984.
I mean, it's literally, and you guys, this.
What did you just say?
I just said that's straight up 1984. That's so crazy.
It is so 1984.
Well, in my opinion, it's where John Carpenter got the They Live information because some of the driving in there is obey. Consume. Yeah. And see, look, that's what they were doing in the 60s, you guys. So can you imagine what they're doing now?
It's way worse now. I've seen
fabulous.
The most horrible, subliminal messaging on TV and in children's cartoons. Children's cartoons are the worst.
yeah.
Disney?
Oh my gosh.
Disney? Have you seen all the junk in Disney? And all the little subtle things that they do,
They'll
and
have,
Who Framed
like
Roger
sex
Rabbit as well.
Out and they have all the different subliminals inside
Well,
the cartoon.
sex sells, right? It's like you look at the Starbucks logo, for example. It's in the logos too. But have you ever looked a little deeper at things like these logos? The Starbucks logo is literally, if you guys do some research and look up what's called and you might not want to put this up on screen, you guys, by the way. So it's fashioned after what's called the Sheela-na-gig. And it's an old mythological creature of a woman who's like a siren.
Oh, wow.
And see, and here's the thing. It's a great quote by Confucius that says, signs and symbols rule the world, not words and law, but signs and symbols. You see? There you go. You guys are so amazing.
There it is.
That's
Starbucks.
That's a Sheela-na-gig. So if you think about sex being connected to coffee and, the way that they've framed it, literally, they're selling sex through the symbolism of, go buy their coffee, right?
And that goes down to our deep inner core, like our lower chakra. And it's very instinctual for us. Oh, wow, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
I have a question. Since you brought up Project Paperclip, so you know about the MK Ultra.
Yes.
I've been thinking about the whole SJW and these people I've seen you guys interview. So
they get triggered, and it's weird. They use the words triggered.
Yes,
which is an NLP and a hypnosis.
So when you take a mind control victim, probably because you brought it up, that you have to fragment their mind. You have to subject them to abuse so they'll disassociate, right? So can you see this being done on a level to some people that are because to me, I'm looking at these people and I'm like, I feel like their insecurities are being used against them on a massive scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you take that one, the mind control victim and you're turning them into a super soldier or mind control, you're fragmenting them, you have to, but these people that are acting like this are yelling at the sky and just nonsensical, they have, it's kind of like a black magic kind of thing. I feel like they're being manipulated through their insecurities, but I can't really explain it.
You just did.
Well, I did, but I mean I think you can explain it better because you know about NLP.
What exactly?
Trauma. There's a lot of trauma.
The technique behind
for mass hypnosis or a mass mind control, right? Because you can take that from one person. I'm saying basically, I think it's been, but the technique that's been used with one person has been taken and put on a group of people.
Yes.
To create a schism.
Yeah. Yeah, well, absolutely, because people are controllable that way. You know, they're not gonna, if they're sick and if they're fragmented. You know, if their hormones are imbalanced, for example, if they're eating junky food and all these chemicals are assaulting them from all these different levels, they're not going to be able to actually start asking real questions about
which a large percentage of the American men's sperm counts are actually lower than what an 80-year-old man should be. So our hormones are being messed with, and that could be partially why you see a lot of these SJWs having weird hormone problems. You know they do when you've got like guys with man boobs, and you know you've got people with obvious hormone problems.
Yeah.
And they're completely mind controlled.
Well, and see, that's the whole point, is that you absolutely on a core level in a subconscious way affect these people's health, right? So you know, they've got all the estrogen mimickers, all the, you know, they start getting all this estrogen dominance. So when, you know, the hormones are imbalanced, you know, or not imbalanced, you know, then these people are going to flip out. They're not going to be happy. They're going to have all this anxiety. They're going to be in a state of constant fight or flight, right? They're going to be overwhelmed. They're going to be overstimulated, then which, you know, makes them susceptible to programming. You know, that's why it always, you know, makes me so mad when I see, you know, the progressives. Like, I think that word is so funny because it's regressive. Literally calling themselves the resistance, you know, and saying how woke they are, when in fact, you know, they've had so much Kool-Aid at this point, you know, and they don't even realize
they're
how
just
asleep
using the same
and how
tag
programmed.
words because they're being told to use those tag words.
Yeah.
It's sound bites.
Yeah, but there's often nobody home inside because they've never even been able to figure out who they are, because their hormones are so out of whack that, you know, one day, you know, they're gender fluid because they haven't actually been able to figure out and decide who they are, you know, and it's so hip and it's so trendy. So everybody's being rewarded to be in that place of fragmentation. So then all this programming starts, you know, from an early age, whether it's the, you know, the Disney and the Mickey Mouse Club and you know, the sexualization that occurs with the children, you know, with all the beauty pageants. Our society rewards people to stay sick. They reward people to become narcissistic and psychopathic, right?
That's why you have these people coming out saying, you know, you have people now, like it was originally, okay, I identified maybe to be a different sex or something. Now it's like, oh, I identify now to be disabled. So you've had people
transabled
wanting to be,
like they're in the perpetual state of childhood. Like,
is
they
it
don't
trans
wanna grow up.
racist?
It's like they have like a what do you call it, arrested development, where they're just kind of stuck and they're not allowed to like mature.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And usually it happens around age 14. You know, if it didn't happen around age 2 or 3, which is usually when a child, if they have some sort of form of trauma, and that's often when narcissistic personality disorder will come in, a cluster B, a psychological disorder, that often is when it's formed in the psychology.
Now, what type of trauma would a 2 or 3-year-old have to go to in order to have that happen?
I mean, physical abuse, sexual abuse, molestation.
So pretty severe
So there's
stuff.
usually some form of disassociation, right, that occurs where the being feels helpless. They have no other choice but to clock out. And in that moment, that's when the mind breaks. Now, see, on a smaller scale with MK Ultra, usually certain things like high dosage of, you know, LSD have been used, or scopolamine, for example, Colombian devil's breath, which is, you can often see a lot of that information in regards possibly to the James Holmes and the Dark Knight shooting. Many people question if that was something that was involved with him there. But see, what you have to understand is that there's a mass drugging also happening
in our culture.
The masses.
We've got Ritalin, Adderall.
Yeah.
They're drugging the children so young. And, you know, it's a tragedy. It really is. And they are targeting young boys more than even girls. They are targeting our young boys in school, little kindergarteners. You know, my mom's ex-boyfriend, his children, the teacher plucked them out and said, oh, these kids need to be psychologically evaluated. They need to be put on Ritalin or Adderall. They've got ADD. And the kid seemed pretty normal to me. I hung around the kid. He seemed like a very bright boy, and he seemed normal.
Bright kids.
And they threatened him, oh, if you don't take your child to go see this psychiatrist, we're going to have CPS come for medical neglect. That's it. So they try to threaten you. You need to drug your kids.
Yeah. And I used to work for LAUSD for a long time. as well. And I think also too, just the way the system is set up, a lot of, I'm not like justifying it or excusing it, but a lot of teachers are stressed. Yeah. And they have all these kids and stuff. And a lot of teachers, I mean, I wasn't like that, but I know I can see a lot of teachers would be like, just put them on something, just calm down. I can't deal with it.
Like they've got too big of classroom sizes.
Yeah, like too big of classroom sizes. The curriculum is horrible. The teachers are miserable because they're not really allowed to teach. They're being told what to taught. Then that's a whole nother show right there.
Right, forcing them to,
it's like
teach
prison,
boring stuff so the kids act out.
Yeah, and it's the teachers aren't happy as well either. But it's a lot of teachers go along with it because they it's just too much for them, and they just rather have the kid just zone out and just not. Be active.
It's like the whole system is set up for failure.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. And often those are our brightest children, the ones that are thinking outside of the box. And, that's a super scary thing to have a child that comes in that's, perhaps, sometimes they're called indigo children, and they're very, very different. And often, unfortunately, they're marked early on. And there's a lot of amazing information about the indigenous cultures. And how they used to understand how to have the rites of passage, which is what we don't have with our children and today's youth, right? And they used to know what to do with those beings and how to bring them up correctly so that they can be somebody that's extremely powerful and helpful to the tribe. Whereas now, often those children, those special, smart, bright children, end up in the mental hospitals, right?
Yeah. That's right. Most of the top inventors out there had been ADD children. Steve Jobs, I believe even Oprah Winfrey was diagnosed. I mean,
she came to the dark side.
They could choose the dark side, whatever. But could they be choosing the dark side because they were ostracized and essentially pushed away from the herd and told they had to conform to something that they weren't? So it's just interesting to see that this is what we have going on in our culture right now. We've got massive mind control through fake news. It's not just the news that's engaging in it, but at the same time, when you have companies like Time Warner and Comcast owning these networks, like for example, Time Warner, you look it up, CNN is underneath them. It's owned by them. Yeah. And so is it any wonder when you have a bunch of these shows as well that you see on TV, all being owned by giant, big umbrella corporations, they're all engaging in the same subliminal messaging, NLP,
and funded by the pharmaceutical companies as well, too.
Well, and that's why it's so important for people to really start becoming, educated in how to read all of that. I don't envy anybody starting on this road right now because there's so many levels of disinformation.
It's hard,
I mean, there are whole companies where all they do is handle the PR of certain concepts or something that's, somebody's selling.
Exactly. And, that is why it is so important that, we get your guys' support as listeners out there because we are doing something different. And that is why these globalist, big, giant corporations and globalist elitists are attacking us. If we weren't doing something that's right, we wouldn't be constantly being attacked. Alex wouldn't be constantly being attacked. And we are being attacked. Why are they attacking us? Because we're giving you the supplements out there to potentially heal you from the injuries and damage that they're causing you and inflicting you while we're trying to wake you up from the mind control states that they have the majority of America under right now. And my goodness, a lot of people woke up for this election, for the 2016 election, but there are still a lot of people out there that need to be red-pilled. Yeah. You guys out there, the resistance, the Infowars listeners, the red-pilled, you guys out there have a responsibility to wake your neighbor. Know thy enemy, but wake thy neighbor, okay? And in part of doing so, you can always get something for your neighbor, such as some of our health supplements for Christmas, for the holidays. It's a great way to introduce some of our products because everyone out there is having problems with their health, okay? We are under attack. Our bodies and immune systems, everything are under attack. So we've got 67% off of Silver Bullet, Colloidal Silver. We have all of our ProPure water filters, 25% off. This is important. You need to filter out the fluoride in your drinking water. It is not good, especially for pregnant women. We have Living Defense 50% off plus free shipping. Prostagard 50% off, Survival Shield X2, iodine. Iodine is key. You know, they've actually
witness
seen
to
in
that.
studies
Yeah,
that
firsthand.
women
Absolutely.
that are pregnant that have iodine deficiencies have babies with lower IQs. And I can tell you, I took iodine all throughout my pregnancy. This specific iodine, and my child is beyond advanced, okay? And I'm not just saying because I'm a mom and I like to talk about my kid,
And no
but he
vaccines.
really is.
Yeah,
vaccine
iodine
helps,
for
yeah.
me was one of the most important things that I actually took that really helped in my healing. And I absolutely can say that as a personal testimony. It helped to clear up my PCOS, you know, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Oh, that's key.
So it really, you know, it's amazing how simple something can be that can, you know, can
Make a
clean up.
huge difference.
Oh my gosh. And then also something on a side level, because we're talking about helping people deprogram from all this hypnosis. Iodine is one of the most important things that you can take to decalcify the pineal gland. You know, having a pineal gland that correctly secretes in healthy levels dimethyltryptamine so that you can absolutely see beyond that, you know, all this junk that's being thrown our way. You know, that's one of the most important things you can do right now is literally make sure that this, if thine eye be single, is wide open so that you can really see, you know, and separate the wheat from the chaff. Iodine is one of those substances that absolutely can help to do that.
We've got it 50% off plus free shipping, our Survival Shield X2 iodine, which is really good quality. Well, you know, ladies, it has been great.
Yay.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. It's been you guys have shared some amazing information. So make sure you guys share the link. We are going to be right back after this short commercial break with some more awesome guests.